David arrived late to orientation, breathless and grinning, scanning the crowded hall for a place to sit. The only empty chair was beside a girl in ripped jeans and a faded football jersey, legs stretched casually as though she owned the row. He slid in, whispering a joke about being allergic to punctuality. She smirked. "You're not allergic. You're just unserious." That was Brandy, sharp-tongued, confident, and utterly unbothered. By the time orientation ended, they were laughing like old friends, unaware that this accidental seating arrangement would define their college lives. Within weeks, David and Brandy were inseparable. She introduced him to campus football matches, he helped her survive statistics lectures. She blended effortlessly with the boys, earning nicknames and high fives. People assumed they were dating. They always laughed it off. "She's my brother," David would say. Brandy would roll her eyes, pretending it didn't sting. At that time, neither of them knew how fragile that joke would one day become. They developed rituals, morning coffee, shared notes, late-night calls to rant about assignments. Brandy felt safest around David. He understood her sarcasm and never asked her to be softer. David admired her strength. She was dependable, fearless, and always there. Love never crossed his mind. Friendship was easier. Friendship was safe. The semester shifted the day Rose arrived. The governor's daughter. Elegant, poised, surrounded by quiet curiosity. She surprised everyone by being warm and approachable. Brandy welcomed her without hesitation. But David felt something unfamiliar, his heart racing when Rose smiled. For the first time, his world tilted slightly off balance. Rose joined their table, their study sessions, their jokes. She laughed easily at Brandy's sarcasm and listened intently to David's dreams. David began noticing little things, the way Rose tucked her hair behind her ear. The softness in her voice. Brandy noticed too. She just didn't want to understand what it meant. The trio became campus favorites. They were seen everywhere together. But slowly, David started walking Rose back to her hostel after evening classes. Brandy would trail behind, pretending to scroll through her phone. Something inside her was changing, and she didn't like it. Brandy felt irritation whenever Rose touched David's arm lightly or laughed too long at his jokes. She had never been possessive before. She convinced herself it was protectiveness. David was her best friend. She was just looking out for him. That lie comforted her, for a while. It was a casual Wednesday when Brandy decided to wear a dress to class. She had debated it silently in front of her mirror, finally shrugging into the soft fabric. The boys nearly fainted. David blinked twice, dumbstruck. "Who are you, and what have you done with my friend?" he asked, voice cracking slightly. Brandy laughed, twisting her hair into a loose bun. Her heart beat fast, hoping he noticed more than the dress, that he noticed her. Not the tomboy, not the buddy, but the woman she was becoming. Yet when his eyes widened, she quickly masked the flutter in her chest with teasing sarcasm. Brandy had rehearsed it all in her mind. Words that would tell him everything she had hidden, everything she had feared to admit. They sat beneath their favorite mango tree, sun filtering through green leaves, shadows dancing across their notebooks. She swallowed hard, ready to speak. Before she could, David grinned. "I think I'm falling for Rose." Her chest tightened as though someone had pressed a hand over her heart. She smiled, congratulated him with her voice steady, though tears threatened behind her eyes. Something inside her had broken quietly, irreversibly. That night, Brandy cried harder than she had in years. She realized loving David had crept up on her slowly, quietly, until it consumed her. She packed quickly, leaving no time for goodbyes, no chance for David to notice the depth of her heartbreak. He never saw the tears she hid in the corner of her small dorm room. David felt her absence immediately. The campus felt quieter without her laughter, the hallways emptier without her voice. Rose noticed his restlessness, asked questions he didn't answer, and left him to his guilt. He told himself Brandy would be fine. She was strong. But guilt lingered in his chest, heavy and unrelenting, like unfinished business he couldn't complete. Rose watched him struggle silently. She had always noticed how Brandy looked at David, the subtle glances, the soft smiles, the way she laughed a little too loud when he spoke. When Brandy left, Rose asked gently, "Did she leave because of you?" David dismissed the idea. "No. She's strong," he said. But a seed of doubt had been planted, creeping into moments of quiet reflection and restless nights. Without Brandy, David leaned more heavily on Rose. Their study sessions turned into long conversations, walks around the campus became quiet confessions, and laughter was often interrupted by serious talks about life, family, and future ambitions. He believed he had made the right choice. Yet sometimes, during their laughter, he expected Brandy's sarcastic interruption or her teasing grin, and the absence cut deeper than he could admit. Brandy enrolled in another college quietly. She cut her hair shorter, buried herself in academics, and resolved never to love recklessly again. Yet even as she walked across unfamiliar hallways and attended new classes, David's memory lingered stubbornly. It clung to her like the smell of rain or the soft rustle of mango leaves. A constant reminder of what she had left behind. Rumors spread across campus and social media. Rose's father had plans for her future, political alliances, strategic marriages, arranged engagements. David ignored the whispers. Love, he believed, could overcome influence. But Brandy knew all too well the cost of expectation, the price of being chosen for someone else's reasons. It made her heart ache for David, not for herself yet, but for the man she had loved quietly from the start. A year later, Brandy returned to campus. She walked with quiet confidence, her hair cut shorter, her stride purposeful. Heads turned, not just because she was beautiful, but because there was a strength in her presence that made her impossible to ignore. Beside her walked Ethan. Tall, calm, with eyes that always seemed to notice more than most. Rumors whispered that he had been Rose's childhood friend, perhaps even her fiancé in the making. But when he looked at Brandy, there was admiration, not obligation. Something in the way he respected her space, smiled at her jokes, and listened intently made her chest tighten with a different kind of hope. David froze when he saw her. She was familiar yet distant, the same and completely changed. Rose noticed immediately. The tension in the air was palpable, like a storm waiting to break. Old feelings that David had tried to bury resurfaced unbidden. For days, David couldn't focus. He watched Brandy move through campus, laughing with Ethan, attending lectures, and walking with a poise he had never truly appreciated before. He realized that he had underestimated her, not as a friend, but as someone who could command attention effortlessly, even without trying. Rose noticed the subtle cracks in his composure. His smiles were fewer, his laughter half-hearted, and sometimes his gaze lingered a little too long on Brandy. For the first time, Rose felt something stir, a whisper of jealousy she hadn't known existed. And David began questioning what he had lost when Brandy had left. Rose finally confided in Brandy one quiet afternoon. They sat in the courtyard, autumn leaves drifting around them. "My father wants me to marry Ethan someday," Rose admitted softly. "It's all planned out, strategic, convenient. But I don't love him." Brandy nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She understood the pressure of expectation. She also realized that Ethan's eyes followed her now, admiration plain and open. The triangle had shifted dramatically. Rose, David, and Brandy were no longer just friends, they were tangled in choices, desire, and loyalty. Seeing Brandy laugh with Ethan stirred a strange feeling in David, jealousy, yes, but also regret. He replayed the moments he had shared with Brandy before Rose arrived. He remembered her laughter, her teasing, the way she always seemed to know what he needed before he did. Had he mistaken comfort for friendship? Could he have loved her all along and been too blind to see it? Ethan was not playing games. From the first moment he truly noticed Brandy, his intentions were clear. He admired her strength, honesty, and wit. He didn't try to compete with David. He didn't flaunt his attention. Instead, he respected her pace, offered support, and showed that he could be steady, reliable, and kind. For the first time, Brandy felt chosen, not second, not a consolation prize, but someone valued completely. She smiled differently now, a quiet warmth in her chest, because she finally understood what it felt like to be truly seen. David couldn't focus in class anymore. Every time he saw Brandy across campus with Ethan, a restless stir rose in his chest. He tried to convince himself it was protectiveness, she had been his best friend long before Ethan appeared. But the explanation felt weak. Deep down, he knew it was something more, something he had ignored for too long. Ethan's presence was steady, like the quiet hum of the campus library. He listened where David joked. He considered where David rushed. Brandy found comfort in his patience. He never pressured her for affection or explanations about her past. With him, she didn't have to measure herself or her emotions. She could simply exist, and that was enough. In his calm, she discovered a sense of peace she hadn't realized she had been searching for, a contrast to the whirlwind of feelings she carried for David. One evening, Rose invited Brandy to a quiet coffee shop off campus. The smell of espresso and baked bread wrapped around them. "My father wants Ethan and me to marry someday," she confessed quietly. "But I don't love him." Her eyes searched Brandy's face, seeking understanding, not judgment. Brandy nodded. "I get it," Brandy said softly. "Love shouldn't be convenient." Rose's hand brushed hers. It was a fleeting touch, but it carried solidarity. In that moment, both women understood the weight of expectations placed on them, by family, society, and circumstance. At home, Rose faced suffocating expectations. Her father spoke of alliances, legacy, and image as if her life was a chess piece. Rose felt trapped between duty and desire. Loving David felt like rebellion, but choosing her own path was the only thing that mattered. She began to quietly carve a space for herself. A life beyond influence, beyond politics, and beyond the people who would choose for her. David began questioning everything. Had he loved Rose, or the idea of her? The prestige, the grace, the challenge? Every time he heard Brandy laugh with Ethan, every time her hair caught the sunlight just right, a pang of regret stirred in him. He realized that his heart might have been blind to what was in front of him all along. He hadn't just lost a friend. He had overlooked love that had been waiting quietly beside him. Rain fell in heavy sheets that afternoon, tapping the roof of the lecture hall like impatient fingers. David ducked under the old mango tree, drenched, but unwilling to leave. Memories surged unbidden, memories of Brandy, laughing under this same tree, trying to speak but interrupted by him with his confession about Rose. For the first time, he wondered what she had been about to say. Had it been love? A plea? A simple "I like you"? The weight of uncertainty pressed down, heavier than the rain. The truth hit slowly, painfully. Brandy had loved him. And he had been blind. Not just blind, but careless. He hadn't noticed the signs, hadn't seen her heart quietly handed to him. His chest ached, hollow with understanding. He had lost more than a friend that day, he had broken a heart without realizing it. Each step he took on campus now reminded him of what he had ignored. It wasn't sudden heartbreak, it was quiet, creeping, relentless. And he couldn't run from it. Ethan was not naive. He noticed the way David's eyes lingered on Brandy, even when he tried to focus on Rose. One evening, as they sat together on the library steps, he asked gently, "Is your heart completely free?" Brandy hesitated longer than intended. Every instinct told her to protect herself, to keep boundaries, to avoid the mess of emotions she knew David could stir. Ethan waited, calm, patient, and her chest softened despite her caution. For the first time, she realized that choosing someone didn't have to feel like war, it could feel like trust. David understood he had to change, not with grand gestures, but with patience. He began showing up consistently. He supported Brandy's projects, offered help when she didn't ask, and learned to listen instead of interrupting. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he became present without demanding attention, proving that he could be reliable. Brandy noticed. She still didn't trust fully, but his steadiness began to chip away at the walls she had built around her heart. Rose caught Brandy in the library one afternoon. "Don't choose from fear," Rose advised softly. "Choose from peace. Choose someone who makes you feel safe and seen." Her words lingered in Brandy's mind long after she walked away. They were a reminder that love wasn't about drama or urgency, it was about clarity, trust, and being truly understood. The annual campus festival arrived, and Brandy was chosen to give a speech about courage and second chances. Her voice, calm yet powerful, carried through the hall. David listened from the back, pride swelling quietly in his chest. Ethan stood near the stage, admiration clear in his eyes. Both men watched her differently, one with longing, the other with respect. For Brandy, it was a moment of empowerment, proof that she could choose her own path, with or without love. Her heart wrestled quietly. Both David and Ethan represented different versions of love. David was familiar, intense, the embodiment of shared history and deep connection. Ethan was steady, deliberate, and safe, the embodiment of a choice made with clarity. Brandy knew she had to decide not from obligation or guilt, but from truth. And that truth wasn't simple. Ethan sensed her conflict. "If your heart still leans toward him," he said gently one evening, "I won't cage you. I'd rather lose you honestly than hold you halfway." His grace, his maturity, and his willingness to step back for her happiness struck Brandy deeply. Her chest tightened in a mixture of admiration, guilt, and longing. She realized that love could be patient, and that some people gave it without strings attached. David approached her under the mango tree, the same tree that had witnessed so much of their history. "Not because I lost Rose," he began, voice steady but soft. "Not because of jealousy. But because I finally understand. I've always loved you, Brandy. I didn't see it before, but I see it now. I see you. Fully." There was no desperation in his words, only truth, a quiet honesty that reached the corners of her guarded heart. Brandy asked for time. Love deserved clarity, not impulse. She needed to see whether David's change was real, whether his patience, honesty, and steadiness matched the man she had once trusted and lost. For the first time, she felt she could take the time to decide without fear. Ethan stepped back voluntarily, with dignity and respect. "I'd rather lose you honestly than win you halfway," he told her. Brandy felt a mix of relief and gratitude. Ethan's presence had taught her that love could be honest, patient, and selfless. She would carry that lesson forever. Under the same mango tree where everything had begun and everything had broken, Brandy faced David again. This time, she spoke first. Her voice was calm, strong, yet soft with emotion. David listened fully. No interruptions, no assumptions, just presence. And for the first time, it felt like the story wasn't about mistakes, missed chances, or regret. It was about a love that had grown quietly beside them, waiting for the right moment to be seen. Rose stood at the campus podium, addressing a small crowd of students, professors, and local media. "I choose my own career. I choose my life," she declared, her voice steady and confident. "I am not defined by my surname or by anyone's plans for me." Brandy watched from the back, a quiet smile tugging at her lips. Rose had always been strong, but now she radiated freedom. David approached Brandy under the familiar mango tree, the leaves whispering in the afternoon breeze. "I didn't see you then," he said, voice low, carrying all the weight of the past. "But I see you now, fully, completely. Every part of you I took for granted, I see it now." Brandy took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the late afternoon sun. "I need time," she said softly. "Love deserves clarity, not impulse. I've been hurt before. I can't make a choice just because it feels right in a moment. I need to know it's real, for both of us." Weeks later, Brandy returned to the mango tree. The air smelled faintly of wet earth and sunlight, a smell that always reminded her of beginnings. David was already there, sitting quietly, watching the leaves sway. She approached, heart steady but full of anticipation. This time, she spoke first. "I'm ready." David rose slowly, a smile spreading across his face. It wasn't triumphant or desperate, just warm, calm, and certain. And in that moment, they were no longer just best friends. They were something deeper, something chosen, nurtured, and finally understood. They walked across the campus together, hands brushing, hearts synchronized, but neither rushing toward a label or promise. No grand gestures. No dramatic declarations. Just steady, honest companionship. Grown from years of friendship, heartbreak, and lessons learned. Sometimes love grows quietly beside you, waiting for the right moment to be seen. And now, David and Brandy knew it had been there all along, waiting, patient, and finally, ready to be embraced. The mango tree stood behind them, silent witness to beginnings, endings, and everything in between. And for the first time, it felt like forever might just be the right word.